Avinash, I'm going to come to you on this. There's a lot of talk, even in the procurement discussion, that the focus is now moving to solution. It's no more just a hardware play or software play, but it's all about end-to-end solution, right? Whether it's procurement or whether it's what the industry should be focused on or usage models. Uh, what do you think India needs to do, the industry needs to do to change, to cater to that opportunity? And also, from a government perspective, there's been a lot of questions on procurement still being very outdated, etc. Any recommendations that can be used?
A great point over here. The process, the change management, and the technology, is solution really. Fine. So that's what the solution is. And by the way, it'll make the decision making everything even more complicated. When someone uses a PowerPoint, it's not technology. What a person does in terms of putting into a PowerPoint presentation is the content really, whether which computer it is on or which package is relevant. So I think when people should be looking at the social networking and all this data and everything as not technology but as part of the digital platform, and people are going to use this digital platform to really disrupt businesses, and it is going to happen very, very quickly. So if we as government, we as citizens, we as businesses do not embrace the impact of digital, it is going to be very significant in that sense.
GB, a quick question to you. As you travel around the countries, do you see examples of countries that are really embracing this and are doing it really well that you would like to share in terms of, learnings for India? I know you talked a bit about Malaysia yesterday, how they're taking broadband, but what are some of the examples that India should be looking at?
Well, I think there'd be a long list of examples, which I think in and of itself is something to note. And I think if I had any words of advice, just as a frequent visitor and someone who travels around the world and the region, I think if you look at first, I think the desire to connect every citizen in the country is incredibly important, and I think we almost start checking it off. Put it in the bank, it's going to happen, but it's an incredibly important thing that still has to happen. It takes enormous amount of focus and discipline to do it. But once that's done, I think the opportunity, there's plenty of examples of virtual classrooms, online courses, kind of that whole how do you scale education in a virtual environment over that network once it's implemented, that exist in Latin America, they exist in Portugal, they exist in Malaysia. It was one of the first things they did with their implementation. So I think that one of the things that we can bring as an industry to the table is those examples and those cases and white papers. And I think it takes courage and to learn from those successes and failures, because a lot of these things have been tried before in other areas. I think two other things that just jump out at me as kind of lessons learned. One is having the right kind of central and state support, but also enabling local execution, which is not easy. But I think the more you can give local authorities the resources, the authority, and then obviously hold them accountable for delivering the results, I think that speeds up execution tremendously, and I think that's been a key learning and what I've seen work around the region. So I think those are a couple of big things, but we're happy to share very specific examples to the degree we can.
Right. So I guess the advice is we should not be trying to reinvent the wheel all the time and learn from what's happening around the world. Amar, I'm going to change tracks a bit. Youth and technology go hand in hand, and India has one of the largest young population. Right. We talk about a demographic dividend. What's the opportunity you see in it, as from an IT industry perspective? What's the opportunity you see, not just in terms of connecting maybe the youth back to the whole innovation charter, the entrepreneurship charter, but also the role that technology can play in ensuring that demographic dividend really pays off?
No, I think and that's a big reality. I really feel that the demographic dividend of the youth structure that we have is going to make this a lot more easier for us to implement. I mean, we are clearly in the touch generation, right? We had the type, then the clicks, and then now it's the touch. And it's just come naturally to them. And they just take to technology very, very naturally. So I think beyond a point, I don't think you really need to go and show them every bits and pieces. I think they will figure out, the hole in the wall. There are many experiments that have demonstrated it. But I believe that the ability to implement technology and for the citizens to take use of it, I think it's going to be much easier with this generation than in what it was with the previous generation. And I think that itself is going to be a big boost to a country like ours. I mean, who is using social media? We talk about Facebook, and it's a good example. I mean, we need to obviously go beyond the social media, but it is being driven by the youth here. And I think the youth would naturally think of technology as a tool to drive innovation, to actually implement that innovation. I don't think we need to teach them or tell them that. We just need to enable them. And I think enable them with the right level of funding, with the right level of expertise, mentoring, which is where, NASSCOM, FICCI, MATE, all the industry bodies can play a very big role. But I believe that itself, the demographic dividend itself, will actually accelerate the whole iBharat, Digital India opportunity for us.
So, since you were instrumental in driving the startup program in NASSCOM, your thoughts on, because innovation is going to be critical for this country. So, your thoughts on what can be done to drive innovation and the role that we can play?
I think one big thing that's happening today, first technology platform, so it's no longer those monolithic platforms we had to develop on. Today, it's all about mobile and internet. Right, so so what's happening is youth are today taking chances. They are saying failure is not a problem, and hence you see entrepreneurship really growing. And what are these entrepreneurs doing? They are actually developing solutions for local problems, right? So this wasn't happening before. So the number of people who are coming up, because they see the problem and they come up with a solution right here. So that innovation is happening here, but the issue is market access for them. Right, so I think 2 or 3 things need to be done. Who's going to take their solution? So if, like Mr. Shankar Agarwal mentioned, if the government will insist on 3 quotations, innovation doesn't have 3 innovations at the same time, same innovations, right? So I think people have to step in by saying large companies come in and they're saying that we are going to embed that innovation in our solution to the government, because you can't procure, the government will find it very difficult to procure directly. So I think we need to provide them market access. We need to talk to them about exposure. So number of connects that we provided with direct customers and with system integrators, we have found great success. So I think we need to do that more and more. And to the point that was discussed earlier, and of solution, maybe the change has to be that the government does not buy the solution. The government buys the output. It's, we will pay you X 100 rupees per passport, we will pay you 10 rupees per this. Then you don't care about what's the back end. You put very strict SLAs on their delivery, but you buy an output rather than technology, right? And I think if we move to that, then you will find this innovation.
Before we let you go, just the last comments on, if there's one thing you would like to leave behind as a recommendation, either for the government or the industry, what would it be?
I think one of the things that would like to, probably leave behind some of the things so that if we can enable the industry to really work for the right things, because I've seen a lot of projects being, taken on, but they really don't come to a good outcome. And so for example, when we talk about the model RFP as a process for procurement, it'll make sure that whoever is bidding for it, it's a win-win between the government and between the private party that is implementing it. It has to be a win-win, and it's very, very important because I've seen projects would get funded for a price that is just no way it can get implemented, and then you see problems with quality, problems with payment. And if you look at the number of engagements where there are huge amount of payment spending to private companies from the government. At the same time, the government is not wrong, and the private parties are not wrong, but the entire process is the one that is really crippling that stuff. So I would really recommend and request that there be a level of sanity in the entire process. There'll be a level of transparency in the entire process, because I think all the businesses are very, very gung-ho about being a very significant part of making an impact in the country. Yeah. And I think we expect, we have a lot of high hopes with the government, and hopefully they take care to implement this, because if they do not take care of this thing, I don't think so many things will change. Thank you.